The business world is a landscape made up of extreme highs and lows. Even some of the most powerful companies in the world have faced major setbacks and seemingly insurmountable obstacles throughout their history. Here at Context TV, we're taking a deep dive into some of the greatest comebacks the business world has ever seen, and examining just how the companies in question pulled them off. Today's subject? Marvel. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. As of 2019, Marvel is an entertainment juggernaut. The movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe not only consistently dominate the box office, but have also fundamentally changed the film industry. By teaming up with various distributors, the company has also made a major impact on the television landscape, both live-action and animated. While expanding its reach into these various mediums, it's continued to maintain its position as one of the two major comic book publishers. Toys, video games, theme park rides, assorted merchandising, everywhere you look, it's Marvel. Hard though it might be to imagine, considering its massively profitable domination of these varied markets, just a few short decades ago, the company had its back on the ropes. Bankrupt, the company was facing the sort of demise that, unlike those that their characters experience, there would be no coming back from. However, thanks to some innovative thinking, a few calculated risks, and a renewed focus on their core values and assets, including their existing customer base, Marvel not only recovered, but also rose to unprecedented heights. Marvel began in 1939 as Timely Comics. It would later morph into Atlas Comics, finally adopting the name it bears today in 1961. This was the same year that then editor-in-chief Stan Lee introduced the world to the Fantastic Four, revolutionizing the world of comic books. By redefining the medium, Lee, artist Jack Kirby, and their team ushered in a prosperous period for Marvel that would last decades. But by the late 80s, parent company Marvel Entertainment Group changed hands repeatedly, eventually landing in the business empire of Ron Perlman in 1989. As far as comics were concerned, he was an industry outsider but a hugely ambitious businessman, and he had big plans for the company, which he had acquired for $82.5 million. In 1991, he took Marvel public, and its stock prices quickly soared. Riding this wave of supposed financial growth, Perlman proceeded to expand the Marvel brand. He acquired numerous other companies under the umbrella of the Marvel Entertainment Group, including a substantial share in Toy Biz. It was the pre-internet early 90s, and comics had become a popular collectible. Sales were booming thanks to a spectacular market, and the company cashed in on the trend by producing an ever-increasing number of rebooted series with number 1 written on the cover and variant covers for collectors to purchase, while simultaneously bumping up prices. Sales were thankfully strong, as under Perlman's guidance, an estimated $700 million worth of acquisitions had been made. To add insult to injury, in 1992, 7 of Marvel's core group of creative talent, which included industry legends like Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, and Rob Liefeld, left the company to create Image Comics, disrupting the two-horse race between Marvel and DC Comics. With a creator-owned model and a deep bench of proven talent with strong name recognition in the space, Image also cashed in on the spectacular market of the early 90s. Then, as bubbles are wont to do, because yes, this period was a bubble, it burst. Within just a few short years, Marvel had gone from being one of the seemingly fastest-growing entertainment companies to filing for Chapter 11. The driving force behind sales had been the spectacular market, which crashed with a vengeance, partly due to a perceived decline in quality of the comics themselves. The stock value plunged from a high of $35.75 to a measly $2.37. Marvel had drastically overextended itself and was floundering in debt. A lengthy legal battle ensued involving Perlman and Marvel stockholders. It was messy and lasted about 2 years, so here's the short of it. Marvel Entertainment merged with Toy Biz in 1998, was rechristened Marvel Enterprises, and left the courtroom sans Perlman and a number of his associates. The company was in the clear and still breathing, but just barely. In order to survive in a world of diminished comic book sales, the Marvel mavens needed to diversify their revenue streams. Sadly, Marvel apparently had yet to run out of bad ideas. Does anyone remember the Marvel Mania restaurant initiative? Thankfully, only one saw the light of day. Though various plans failed on takeoff, there was hope on the horizon, however distant it may have seemed at that time. In the wake of the bankruptcy, the co-owners of Toy Biz, Isaac Perlmutter and Avi Arad, took leadership roles within the new company. Arad, for his part, had been involved in the successful X-Men animated series and was pushing for feature films. From Spider-Man to Captain America to Iron Man to Thor to the Scarlet Witch and on, Marvel had created some of the most recognizable figures in pop culture. But whereas DC's heavy hitters Batman and Superman had left their respective marks on the big screen, Marvel had yet to make a comparable leap into theaters. By licensing out their characters for theatrical presentation, Marvel was able to secure itself some quick cash. It by no means made the company rich, but it gave them revenue to survive. The move also had the added bonus of increasing public awareness of their characters, thus stimulating brand value and more sales across various media. This was a short-term solution, one that, in hindsight, has been much maligned by fans as short-sighted as well. In reality, however, the MCU likely never would have existed had Marvel not first made films using this model. It was a stepping stone, unpleasant but necessary. It was also a low-stakes way of testing the waters of how Marvel characters fared on the big screen. With the success of Blade and the X-Men films, the potential of Marvel movies had been established. Now it was time for Marvel to profit off of the burgeoning superhero genre in full. In 2003, talent agent David Maisel came to Perlmutter with a simple but game-changing idea. Start producing films in-house, keep the profits, and while they were at it, connect the films, as Marvel had been doing with comics for decades. Marvel had rebounded to a place of financial security. Now it was time to see just how far they could climb. Maisel's idea was appealing, but also a colossal undertaking. How many companies can you name that have successfully launched their own film production division? Not many, and there's a reason for that. The investment is massive and the risks are incredibly high. Armed with the success of similar films like Spider-Man, however, Marvel was able to secure funding to the tune of $525 million in a deal with Merrill Lynch in 2005. Of course, they had to put up major collateral, and did so in the form of the rights to 10 major characters, including Captain America. Marvel had bounced back from the brink of collapse, only to put themselves in another precarious position. Looking at DC's far more problematic cinematic universe, one is reminded of just how easily Marvel could have failed with the MCU. The most obvious difference between both companies? A single hire. Kevin Feige had been involved with most of the then-recent Marvel films, learning from the successes like Spider-Man and the relative failures like Daredevil. Under Feige's direction as studio chief, the newly christened Marvel Studios took its time and carefully crafted its first film. And they were rewarded when Iron Man took the world and the box office by storm in 2008. Lifted by this incredible success, the fledgling MCU took flight. In 2009, the MCU only had 2 films under its belt, and yet Marvel's recovery over its past decade or so has been so substantial, and the promise of the MCU so tantalizing, that Disney acquired Marvel Enterprises for a whopping $4.24 billion. And since its inception, the MCU has pulled in over $17 billion at the box office. Suffice it to say, Disney made a smart investment, considering that the company had previously sold for just $82.5 million in 1989. It is staggering to see how far Marvel has come. As of 2019, Marvel is thriving to say the least, with its only endgame in sight, an assuredly profitable one. As it moves into the future, it continuously diversifies its output of films, shaking off the incessant predictions of burnout. True, the superhero movie industry could be another bubble, but the best hedge against irrelevance is if the films continue to adapt and evolve, as Marvel has done to date. Ironically, since seeing its leadership transferred to more capable hands, Marvel has become the sort of empire that Ron Perlman actually attempted to build. The magnate's efforts brought Marvel to the brink of collapse, whereas the modern MCU has ushered in an era of unprecedented prosperity. The lesson? It's all in the execution. Marvel's heroic comeback was built off of a few fundamental pillars, which any struggling company is wise to take note of and internalize. Marvel expanded through innovation rather than simple, fleeting, over-leveraged acquisition. The company's recovery strategy was made up of small steps that led to larger ones, stabilizing before each new attempt at growth. The company took risks, but only well-calculated ones. With the MCU, Marvel also created a model to help sustain long-term profitability. Perhaps most importantly, however, it made smart hires, bringing on leaders who truly knew the industry, and this is the crucial part, delivered a product that both their existing customer base and entertainment-hungry new fans were sure to embrace. And that is what we call a comeback.